Hey, thank you so much for viewing and welcome to another very interesting episode of In Power Health. It's the program that teaches you to have power in health, health in power, and we are very pleased that you will tune in every week to get the information, to learn so much more about what you've been eating, what you've been putting into your system, and of course the information on how to increase your health. And remember, your health is your wealth. All right. Anyhow, I'm Alex Hussein alongside Dr. Myers. Once again, we get into information from the bulletin board. Last week we had lots of really great information. I really enjoyed the show last week, though.
Yeah, got some good feedback on it too.
Yeah, of course, especially with the thyroid, and the coconut oil and the turmeric, and how it's so outstanding, and it's oh my gosh, it diffuses and how it benefits our health. Yeah, so I think we had promised to continue or to complete.
The coconut oil.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
So we can start with that, I guess.
Well, we were talking last week, and we were talking about how the thyroid doesn't get measured properly because there's certain assumptions that was made. I should dig that out and go over it again because we did it in quite detail one time. I went and dug out some stuff by books by Barnes, Broder Barnes, and them, so that we could get to the meat of it.
Yeah, that's the good stuff, man.
I always find that if you're going to do something like that, say something like that, the thing to do is to get to the root of the problem, get to where they did the research, the what they're doing, what is the rebuttal as to why it wouldn't work, and then to watch it develop over time and see that in fact there are times when it doesn't work.
Correct. Correct. Exactly.
It's called science. Yes, so we say that we were talking about the thyroid, and we were saying that it is important to understand that in a situation with the thyroid, you can get a situation where you have inflammation, and that inflammation suppresses the thyroid hormones, and it also decreases the responsiveness of the thyroid receptors. So it says when you have that, and as a person who is a practitioner, you say there are people come and they say, I went to the doctor, I have low thyroid. Yes. It was recorded, and I was put on the thyroid medication, and it ain't doing nothing for me. That is because in order for the thyroid to work, if your receptors are not working, or if your receptors are not receptive to synthetic thyroids, then
synthetic thyroid.
Yeah, because most of the time when the doctor give you thyroid medicine,
medicine, okay, right.
The Synthroid and the Levoxil and Unitroid and all these things, they're all made with synthetic hormones.
Right.
The only one that's not made with synthetic hormones is a thing called armor thyroid, right, which is made from extracts, or I think is animals, cows and pigs and things like that. And that is then as close to human being as possible, and it tends to work better.
Right. More expensive too.
But no, it isn't. But the thing about it is that the whole medical profession is controlled by the drug companies, and the drug companies don't want to use any natural thing because you don't make money off it.
Right.
You understand? You cannot take out a patent on it and have exclusive rights to all the profits that comes off. So therefore, instead of promoting what is best, they promote what is most profitable.
Yes. Well, that makes a lot of sense.
I'm not saying you are near to that. All I'm saying is that this is what it does, is that you have that situation. So you find that companies that deal in what you call natural products, which most of the time is way better to use than the synthetic products, don't get publicized much, So that is one of the problems. So he says, if you have the inflammation decreases the conversion of T4, inactive thyroid hormone, to T3. Most of the synthetic hormone medicines T4. And if you give this medication to someone who has inflammation, it won't work at all because it can't be converted to the active form. So he says what you have to do is you really have to feed the thyroid. You have to give the thyroid things that will make it strong. He says you always thought that coconut oil is a bad thing. Truth is that is really good thing, considered to be one of the healthiest foods on the planet. Coconut oil is extracted from the kernel or meat of mature coconuts. Well, we in the tropics know that. You know, everybody have an idea of how to make coconut oil. It also contains saturated fats. In fact, it contains 90% saturated fats. And then you have another problem, because everybody says saturated fats are bad for you, and that is the biggest lie that they ever had.
Okay.
Good saturated fats, work well. I sometimes say, when you read the history of something, you get, I think there's a guy who went and he was developing the things for measuring the heart, the cardio machine.
Okay.
Measures the heart pulse and things like that. And when he was doing it, I read a book and he carried it into the hospital he was working to show them. And he said, well, what are you doing that for? We don't have no big set of problems with hearts. And that was at a time when you'd get up in the morning and it didn't have pop-up toasters for your bread.
Okay.
So it's winter. Do you know what they used to do? They would slice the bread and they would fry it in lard.
All right.
Lard, pig fat. Right? They'd fry it, get a nice brown color. Then they'd take that out and they'd fry the egg and they'd put that on there. Nobody had plugged arteries. Plugged arteries only happens when you have hydrogenated oil and you're making this sticky LPA stuff that the body cannot handle, because God never made hydrogenated oil. So the liver doesn't know how to handle that properly. It knows how to handle all the other fats because it has been doing it for millions of years or hundreds of thousands of years. Right. So we must understand that. So here people say, I don't eat that. I don't eat butter. I just eat margarine. Whoa. Right. So healthy saturated fats are highly beneficial. That is why coconut and coconut oil is so beneficial.
Right.
So it says the saturated fat in coconut oils has some amazing therapeutic values. It promotes heart health. It boosts the immune system. It provides immediate energy, ketonic energy,
right.
Ketones.
Oh yeah, that's the good stuff.
Yes. Helps to regulate, promotes healthy skin. Well, anybody who grew up in Trinidad and fairly much older, they know, because long ago they have any skin problems, they used to rub it on with coconut oil.
Coconut oil.
He's sick, they rub it on with coconut oil.
As well,
yes.
Okay.
Helps to regulate blood sugar. It boosts metabolism. How does it help to regulate blood sugar? That's a good thing.
The blood sugar?
Yeah. You think you have an idea of that?
Well, I can take a shot. I know that usually when you drink the coconut oil, it gives you the energy because your cells burn oil. Right. So so naturally there will be a connection there.
Put him to the top of the class.
Yeah.
Yes, the coconut oil will give you ketonic energy, which is way more efficient than calorific energy. So I have to explain to my patients when they want to lose weight. I say, drink 2 tablespoons of coconut oil in the morning. Have your little breakfast and drink that. I say, what will happen is, within the space of about an hour, you're going to have energy coming through your whole system. You'll feel good, because it is a higher kind of octane of energy, for want of a better term.
That's a good stuff.
And the thing about it is that whereas if you eat bread and things like that for breakfast, your sugar will spike. And then when it comes back down, it's coming back down just about 12 o'clock. Yes. So it overshoots, because the body don't just bring down and level off. It will overshoot and come back. So for a little while, you're running what looks like a low sugar before it balances itself back out. That is the time they tell you, God, boy, I'm hungry, I'm ready to eat. Now, if you have ketogenic energy, that don't happen.
Correct.
Because it goes up and it doesn't have to bounce down. It will slowly decrease. So when lunchtime comes, and it will say, let me go and eat, and you go down the road and you normally want a plate of food, you know what I mean? put some more of that for me, things like that.
You don't feel that way?
You don't feel that way. In fact, you say, give me less. I only eat a little bit of that. I
Yeah.
only eat a little bit of that. So if you say, you're sick today, or I say, no, I just ain't feeling, I'm not feeling
that.
hungry.
Right.
And you begin to understand that your hunger comes from this surge of sugar and the drop of sugar that causes this simulated feeling that you have to be hungry. You know?
Correct. I like that.
So it boosts metabolism and it promotes weight loss. So the 3 fatty acids that your thyroid crave, the unique medium chain fatty acid profile of coconut oil is what makes it stand apart from other oils and gives it the ability to help the body self-regulate. Something it's quite able to do. These fatty acids include lauric acid, which is found in mother's breast milk. They're small enough to be the molecular size that they can be gobbled up by the mitochondria in the cells. Because of this, they provide immediate energy for the body, which is what we're talking about. You get ketogenic energy. So it does a role in helping diabetes. It helps it to drop the sugar. Once that energy could get into the cell, it changes the whole picture about how the body metabolism works. Because if you have sugar and it can't get into the cell, then the energy level goes low. So diabetic people normally tend to have problems with energy, and they're always taking insulin and things like that to help get the energy going.
Makes perfect sense.
Right? If you have this coconut oil and the lauric acid gets in, the lauric acid is converted to monolaurin, which is a potent antiviral, antibacterial, and antiprotozoal substance. Because monolaurin is a monoglyceride, it's one single molecule, it can destroy lipid-coated viruses, including measles, influenza, HIV, herpes, and a number of other pathogenic bacteria.
Wow, Doc.
Right? So it helps to destroy viruses. Coconut oil helps to destroy viruses. Right? Also helps to destroy yeast, fungi. Another fatty acid that coconut oil contains is caprylic acid, also found in breast milk, also known as octanoic acid. This saturated fatty acid has a number of health promoting properties because of its innate ability to treat yeast-like fungus in the intestines. So it helps to kill fungi. This medium chain has potent antimicrobial, antiviral, antifungal. Capric acid is converted to monocaprin, a form that readily fights viruses, bacteria, and the yeast Candida albicans. Because of this unique combination of fatty acids, coconut oil suppresses the inflammation and repairs the tissue while inhibiting microorganisms that cause the inflammation in the first place. So it gets into the thyroid and helps to straighten out the terrain. Get it back in working in efficiency.
Of course.
So then, if you put in some iodine, it could receive the iodine and bounce and bring it back to health. So I think once you understand that, you had a civilization that was using coconut oil as its main component, you'd understand that why diabetes was never a problem. It was never a problem because you don't have any sticky cholesterol to deal with.
That's right.
If you don't have any sticky cholesterol to deal with, then it means that all your cholesterol that goes into the body is going to be low density cholesterol. And you're doing coconut oil, your high density cholesterol will always read high. It will always have a tendency to read high. And if you're taking your vitamins and things with that, excellent. So you never had heart problems and you never had arteriosclerosis problems.
Correct.
So you begin to understand that a lot of diseases that we have now are man-made diseases. And what we need to do is not try to find out how to fix the man-made diseases or what chemical to take, but to stop doing the things that causes it in the first place.
That's right. That's right. And so simple too, coconut oil.
Yeah.
Easy stuff.
So we move on to the next one.
All right.
USD approves genetically engineered potatoes despite GMO backlash. So they have a new potato coming out. Okay, the department has nevertheless approved commercial planting of 2 types of GMO potatoes that have been altered to supposedly resist the pathogen that led to the Irish potato famine, which occurred more than 170 years ago.
Oh, yeah?
The USDA approval, the next step is that the potatoes must clear a voluntary review process by the Food and Drug Administration,
FDA.
a voluntary program. About to do it.
Wow.
And then get the go-ahead from the Environmental Protection Agency.
Right.
He says the second generation of innate potatoes. Company officials have said that the potatoes are also engineered to have reduced bruising, fewer black spots, better storage capacity, a lower amount of chemicals that is created when potatoes are cooked at high temperatures.
What?
Yes. There are a lot of carcinogenic things that are created when you fry potatoes in oil. Now, if you understand that, you will understand that in England, when I lived there, you had they have fish and chip shop where they fry the fish in batter and they fry the potatoes.
Right.
Good.
Right.
You get new spring potatoes and you fry that. It tastes
Isn't that the place
real
you used to
nice.
hang out in like every week?
No, not every week. I'm not really mad about fish and chips, but sometimes it's good to eat, especially when you're out late in the night.
Yeah.
You know. But what they had is that they had a rule that the oil had to be changed every day.
Okay. Okay.
When they finished cooking, they had to weigh the oil and dispose of it in a drum. So what they bought, they had to have a record of what they bought. They had to have a record of what they used every day, and they had to have a record of the disposal.
Okay.
And then who came to take the drums had to sign for it. If you went into a shop that fried stuff and they didn't have that, a lot of people would get into some serious trouble. Why? Because frying potatoes in oil leaves a very carcinogenic product.
Yeah.
Now let us assume that you have a place that is frying potatoes and other things. And at the end of the day, they don't throw away the oil. And they come the next day and they cook in it. Why? Because they don't have anybody checking it.
Yeah.
They have no rules or anything.
Exactly.
So they fry it in oil for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And the toxins build up a huge amount. And then you would think at that point that they would throw away the oil. And what if they took a little scoop of chlorine powder and throw it into the oil and boil the oil with the chlorine powder so that they could bleach the oil back out, thereby added chlorine out to the toxins. And when the oil comes back clear, to take that clear oil and mix it with new oil.
Is this like something hypothetical, or is this what people are actually doing? I don't know.
Well, if you go into a shop that is using that kind of oil,
Yeah.
there's always a kind of awful smell.
Yes. Yes.
Right? And I close my case at that point. Now, so you realize that we're doing a lot of things that are making people sick.
Well, obviously, and killing people too.
So that the people who own the places don't seem to think that they have the responsibility to cut back the profits a little bit and use fresh oil. That would be too
But no one's saying anything at the same time.
Well, I think that, it's the old thing that we're saying. If you're going to run a country, you have to have a whole lot of checks and balances in place.
Correct.
And when you have the checks and balances in place, you have to have people who will enforce them.
Right. So people can have to.
Because you put them in a
account for what they
classroom and explain to them, if you allow this to happen, then a whole lot of people will get sick, and this is the range of diseases that can happen. And so you go right down the line. I always say we're a small country. If you go to the people who are producing chicken and says, we will allow you to raise the chicken by 50 cents a pound. Take out all the hormones. Take out all the antibiotics. Take out all the steroids. We're going to come and check you for it. So you produce a chicken that is as close to the yard fowl as possible. Then immediately you will have a great rise in the health of the people in that country.
Of course you will.
But that's too simple. That's too simple. So you have boys walking around toting a lot of excess estrogen and consequently beginning to develop diseases at the age of 15, 16, 17, 18. I have 20, 22-year-old kids that come and ask me if I have anything for the boy.
Right. And that's 22 now.
22 years old. It's crazy. So the new potato is resistant. But I was reading a report on it, and they said that normally they alter the DNA, but in this case they've altered the RNA, which is the central double helix that's going on. So you have a big double helix on the outside and a small one coming.
I've seen that
as the
in
RNA.
before.
Yes,
Right.
they've altered the RNA, and the RNA is altering the DNA. And this is a fairly new technique. And they're saying that what could happen is that it could run amok.
Okay.
It could come out real skewed, and that they haven't done enough tests on it to do it. So it is going to be interesting to watch. You know, already some of the European countries have already banned it,
Yeah.
and you know that Russia, they have no GMOs at all. They've ostracized them. They say no, we don't want that. We are prepared to eat natural. You know. The other thing about it is that they say that it increases the yield and things like that. It really doesn't. And we know that it puts out an inferior quality product in terms of nutrients.
Because there's no nutrients in it.
So it is interesting to watch all the things and see this. And you have a new potato coming up. The problem is that you don't know it's genetically modified. And if you had put this mark genetically modified.
Oh, right. So you're just
You
going to
know?
stamp that on it? Nobody's going to do that.
So I had a farmer tell me the other day that the Farmers Association, that the people, the representatives come down and they give them seeds. They give them genetically modified
Yeah,
seeds
of
to
course,
try.
Of course.
You know, the same way they did with the oil, you know, 40, 50 years ago. So we seem to be back to the same thing, you know. So that I just thought I'd mention. You know, they also now have genetically modified apples.
I'm not surprised.
Do you know how you tell the difference? When you cut an apple
Yeah.
and you open it,
You leave it out for a while.
it changes color.
It would.
Well, if not a while, within a couple of minutes it changes.
Right.
While you're eating it, it starts to change
It's a
color.
little brownish,
Right.
whatever.
The genetically modified ones
Stays white.
doesn't oxidize, so it stays white. In other words, they want it to look nice. How it tastes and what it have in it is not important. You know. So you have a lot of problems with that. So the next thing I want to talk about is something that keeps bugging us all the time, and that is systemic yeast infections. And we don't recognize how powerful they are. You know, I was reading a book on cancer, and the guy was saying that the fungal part of the cancer, when it starts to operate, it needs estrogen. So it gets a kickstart from the estrogen in the body, and then it proceeds to make its own estrogen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it takes
In order for it to
estrogen, makes more estrogen.
yes.
Okay, got it.
So that when you have that and a woman has yeast, that the yeast gets into the vaginal tract, you know, the uterus and things like that, and it takes the estrogen and it makes more estrogen. So the woman's periods becomes erratic
Right.
because you need a balance between estrogen and progesterone to work that formula. And if they have a lot of yeast, then what happens is they begin to have excessive bleeding. And when they have excessive bleeding, they normally would have cysts and fibroids, all of which is part of that whole misgrowth, right, of the excessive yeast problem.
Yes.
So I would say that in this country we have at least 60% of the women have yeast problems.
Yeah.
Chronic low-grade yeast problems.
Not at all, Doc.
You know, and that started primarily because of the antibiotic revolution, without the understanding that you have to put back probiotics into the system. And so you say a lot of women have, and they have irregular periods, heavy bleeding, pain, cramps. And you normally check and they'd probably have some cysts. And, you know, they'd say, well, you're really small. You could leave them. Don't worry with them.
Really?
Or sometimes they give them, they give you metformin.
Yes.
No, metformin is a diabetic drug. And you say, well, how can you give metformin for cysts? What's the connection? The connection is that the cysts are formed by fungi. Fungi are notorious for wanting sugar.
Okay.
So when they take the metformin, and you're not diabetic, what it will force to happen is that your sugar goes very low. Okay? So in fact, it is a way of speeding up the takeout of the sugar out of the system. When you do that, what you're doing in fact is starving the cyst. So when you starve the cyst and you're not eating too much sugar, what they'll do is start to shrink and move away.
Yeah, exactly. They want to stick around.
Right? But metformin in this situation, where you don't have diabetes, have even more side effects. Because metformin is notorious for mashing up the liver and the kidneys.
Yes.
More so the kidneys.
Oh, boy.
You know, abroad,
causing more
every 3 to
problems.
6 months you had to go and take a blood test if you're using metformin. Here we don't have that kind of strict rules. We kind of ignore the advice of the drug company, because the drug company can get sued. Here we don't have that situation, so everything goes lax. So the conditions what you should have to know about, you don't get to know about them at all.
Yes.
Right? So we say, once you have that, then you begin to realize the cysts, the fibroids, the endometriosis, all these kind of things. They start basically around that fungal invasion of the system. And you don't get much information about fungi in the medical fraternity. And I think that is because antibiotics are made out of fungi.
Oh, okay.
So you have a little kind of arcane little corner, you know, that you don't hear too much about. So anyhow,
How to conquer and heal it.
so he says candida is normally part of the beneficial flora in our digestive tract. Now the other thing about candida is that candida, you have, you know, it's very fascinating. You had Pasteur and Beauchamp. Pasteur says that you have a disease, bacteria comes into your body, the immune system fights it, kills it, and you get back healthy. Beauchamp said no. He said you can have a body and the terrain of the body goes out of whack. You're eating something too much, you're stressing out too much, you're creating toxins. And what the body tries to do is it then tries to make a bacteria that will move stuff.
Okay.
Right? But that is a cure that the body, a fix that the body is trying to do, knowing that it's going to have side effects. So, Candida albicans could exist as a bacteria. It could exist as a microbacteria. It could start out as a virus coming up. It can move into the fungal state. It can move into the hyphated fungal state, which is a state where it could screw out of something and go on its way.
Right.
And it can move into a crystalline state, which would make it very dangerous at that
It
point.
would.
So you have all these levels that you exist inside what I call the scientific realm of investigation that is not talked about in the medical realm. I have a big manual called cell wall deficient forms. You know, and what it does, it is discussing these transfers, how these things change and why they change. And it is completely ignored in drug medicine in the West.
Right.
So that you're only getting part of the answers and not the whole answer.
Right.
Right? So normally you'd have Candida albicans in the flora and fauna. It's like you will, if you have a society, you'll always have a bad boy in the set. Right? What happens is when they knock out the police and they have nobody to supervise, then the bad boys come and they proliferate. You understand? And they take over the system. That's the best way of putting things. So the probiotics is like the policemen that coming back in. So your gut works in a kind of synergistic balance between all the various types of bacteria. Right? For instance, if you have an overgrowth of yeast, it means that, a nice way to put it in the society is, If you have a bad boy and you have a guy who like to run drugs, then they'll get together because they have a mutual interest, right? So just so with the Candida albicans. The Candida albicans have a couple partners, right? One of the partners that limes a lot with the Candida albicans is the Clostridium bacteria.
Okay, you already mentioned that before.
Right. Now, the Clostridium bacteria likes to eat a special kind of food. It likes to eat iron.
Iron.
So people who have yeast problems normally have anemic problems.
Yeah.
They have anemic problems because the Clostridium who is hanging out with the yeast is eating up all the iron, right? Giving the person things. And in the West, in medicine, when a person has anemic problems, what do?
Well, I was going to actually, I thought you were going to ask what are the symptoms, but
The symptoms?
symptoms would be like dropping hair.
Yes.
You know, you feel that you feel cold, like you mentioned earlier.
Yes. Tiredness.
Yeah, that tiredness as well.
Yeah. They could get very similar problems.
Yeah.
You know, circulation problems, bad periods.
Can't sleep properly at night.
Excessive bleeding sometimes, but about a deficient bleeding rather than a excessive bleeding.
Right.
You know,
Right. Oh.
the blood will not be bright red or heavy dark red. It'll be more tending towards pink, watery, you know, that kind of way.
Oh, you probably have like blackouts and stuff too.
Yes. And along comes the doctor and he says, oh, you have anemia. If you don't have Candida and he gives you iron, the chances are you don't have Clostridium. So the iron will react nice and you go back a month later and all right, everything comes up. But you have some people, you'd give them iron and they'd get more anemic. Because you're feeding the Clostridium and the Clostridium bacteria increases.
Correct.
So sometimes I see some patient and they've gone to 2 or 3 different doctors and each one has given them iron and they're taking 2 or 3 sets of iron and they're constipated because iron constipates them and they're still very anemic. You say, well, you can't take 2 or 3 sets of iron, it doesn't really improve the situation.
Can you imagine that, all that iron you're taking?
Yeah, and then the next thing you have is you have iron poisoning from the liver, ferritin poisoning, which is another disease by itself.
Right.
So you begin to understand when you dig inside here, you have all these pathways going down,
Correct.
where all kinds of stuff can
If
happen.
you don't know what you're doing, it just makes it worse.
Yes. So, you know, I sometimes when I have people and they come and they say they're anemic, the first thing I look to do is to see whether they have Candida. You know, get a rough test to see whether they have Candida. Spit in a glass of water and sit down there and watch it grow roots.
Right.
Does that, and you know the chances are that you have that.
Wow.
So therefore, instead of giving the person iron or telling them go to your doctor and get iron, what you do is you start to wipe out the fungi.
Okay, good. Yes.
Right? So this is what he's talking about. Factors that cause Candida overgrowth. Okay? And factors that cause Candida overgrowth is the consumption of the standard American diet with plenty grain and plenty meat and plenty dairy and not much vegetables except a leaf of lettuce and a slice of cucumber or a slice of tomato. Say, oh, I used to have vegetables. You know, people tell you that. You look at the vegetables there, you get a slice.
I love me some good vegetables.
Right? So you have thing. Now the other thing about, as a sidetrack, the other thing about the vegetables is that when you have vegetables, lots of times you're eating cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower. They all goitrogens.
Really?
Yes, they all will slow down your thyroid. So you have to be very careful how you eat and what you
Are you
eat.
serious?
I am serious.
Glad you mentioned that.
So you can't eat that every day too much. People come and they say, oh, you know, I'm eating all these things and I should be feeling healthy or feeling tired. You say, well, you're eating a lot of things that's shutting down your thyroid. Right? Ease up on that. Use something else, you know. Use a little bit of bygone and a little bit of bodi and all these other things.
Yeah. Bygone and bodi.
And that kind of stuff. And if you're not diabetic, you could use pumpkin and, you know, all that nice stuff. So the standard American diet. Now the thing about the standard American diet, it is basically a very acid diet, especially because it also combines a lot of sugary things inside it. You know, sugar juice and, you know, what do they call it? Jumbo size.
Oh Lord. Super size.
Super size. I remember the first time I went to the States a long, long time ago, and he says, which size you want? Small, normal, or super size?
Yeah.
You know.
They probably
And I
never
say,
say
what's
small.
your super size? The guy bring out this big giant cup. And I
Wow.
says,
What's a dipper?
a dipper. Then you have environmental pollutants, alcohol consumption, oral contraceptives, again,
Okay.
the excess estrogen, okay, antibiotics, which is kill out the good bacteria, and then the fact that the diet that you have is very acidic, and that acid helps to promote candida. If you want to restrain candida, if you have a woman and she's having a lot of problems with vaginal infections, you know, she goes to the doctor and the doctor gives an antibiotic and the problem seems to go away, and then a couple of months it comes back and it goes away and she's always on antibiotics.
Is it that it went away and came back, or it just never went away?
Never went away. It's inside the intestines, you know. So it's not totally going, and it hides very well. And it have a thick outside skin made out of chitin, which is same like a crab, so it's very hard to penetrate, yes. So what you do is you arrange to do a douche, and you do a douche with sodium bicarbonate.
Okay.
They put a little sodium bicarbonate to water here, and then what it does when you put the baking soda inside there, and baking soda is also very good for when cells are precancerous.
All right.
The only problem is to get pure baking soda that doesn't have aluminium salts in it. Most of the no, it doesn't. They have them on the shelf. One of the ways of knowing if you have pure baking soda or not is that when you open the box and you try to pour it out, it will have lumps and clumps in it.
Cakes up.
Yeah, because that is what it does. It's very hygroscopic. So it dissolve water and make little lumps and clumps.
Anytime you open and it pours out one side.
If you do and you open it, you know, like some of the popular ones, you pour it out and it runs out nice. You say this is good. That's because it's filled with aluminium salts. And we won't tell you what aluminium salts does to the human setup, you know. So you really have to go and try to find
pure baking soda.
Baking soda that is pure, which you don't have in the shop at the moment. Right. So that is one of the problems. But if you had that, if the woman had that, then she could make a little mixture, use a little, not much, a little half a teaspoon of that, and make a douche and put it inside and leave it there for about 15 minutes lying down, and then get up and let it run out. The baking soda will tend to knock out the yeast very quickly and very thoroughly. And then when you finish, you know, in some natural books they will tell you, go and get some natural yogurt with the normal bacteria. Or better still, a little kefir, right? Natural. And you mix that. Right? You could do something like mix it in coconut water. That is with green coconuts, young coconuts. Leave it overnight, then you have that, and then douche with that. What that will do is it will put the bacteria back into the system and prevent the invasion of more candida.
And once again, naturally.
Right, and you also use the probiotic in the gut to help clean it out, and you could do that for quite a long time before you really settle down. What all the whole effect of the depression, the crying, all of that will slowly start to disappear as you realize that is an effect of the candida itself. And I was reading a report the other day which says that the candida has a way of going into the central nervous system when it comes down to the intestines, and they literally jack into it and tell the brain what they want. You know, so it is a whole combination of all kinds of things.
It surely is. Doctor, let me ask a quick question. Has anyone that you know of, or have you ever heard of any cases of anyone maybe dying from having too much yeast or too much?
I am sure that there are a lot of people who do that. And you see a lot
without being treated, of course.
You see a lot of people who are very sick, and that could get so bad that it breaks out on the skin and all sorts of things. You get whole fungal problems on the skin and things like that. And then that person is really sick, Because to get rid of that, because it's systemic, it's all inside the muscular system and all sorts of things.
Infiltrated
You know,
everything.
I've often wondered why that would do that like that. Now, you know, the other place you can get candida is sometimes when you have a person and they're doing chemotherapy and radiation.
Okay.
The chemotherapy kills stuff. It's designed to kill fungus. It's designed to kill bacteria, so it will wipe out the gut bacteria that you have.
Yeah.
Right? Same thing with the radiation. And then because the candida tends to have this nice, heavy skin to protect it, it tends to die last. So lots of times people who have chemotherapy and have a leaning towards that and have a leaning to eating a lot of acidic foods, what will happen is they will get candida, but they will get a really terrible form of candida.
Okay.
Because there's not much opposition for it to take over.
Right. Exactly.
So
Wow. Region.
So you have, so you see here, he says, vaginal yeast infections are also common after taking antibiotics. One of the common effects that this shows the eruption of beneficial bacteria in the intestines is diarrhea. You go down the road, you eat some food from some crazy place, cook, warm over. After a week, you say, oh boy, this tastes good, and you go home and suddenly you double over on the floor because you have all these massive stomach cramps, and then you have several bouts of diarrhea, and you say, oh God, I eat something bad. Right? But what you then have is that it also is destroying the gut bacteria that you have too. So, Dr. Jeff McCombs, who's an expert on candida, he says, if you've taken antibiotics, you have candida overgrowth. It's that simple, but I say if you've taken antibiotics and you also eat a lot of acidic foods, then you have to deal with it even more because it spreads much easier.
Correct.
One common side shows the disruption of beneficial bacteria in intestines. Right? There are also numerous other medications that are responsible for candida overgrowth, such as chemotherapy and radiation, environmental toxins such as pesticides, herbicides, solvents, paints, formaldehyde, petrochemicals, heavy metals, also weaken the immune system and put the body at risk. Chronic stress can also weaken the immune system, paving the way for candida overgrowth.
Rings a bell.
So, symptoms of candida overgrowth include sugar-sweet cravings, gas, bloating, fatigue, low energy, allergies, sinusitis, acid reflux, hormonal imbalances, brain fog, depression, arthritis.
Wow.
Right? And that depression and things like that could come to a state where the person is also hallucinogenic. They start to hallucinate. Candida can be really rough when you get it in an extreme form.
Yes.
And sometimes it's misdiagnosed as mental problems.
Right.
And they give people medicine now for solving mental problems, when in fact it's a candida problem.
Yes.
So there are a lot of books written on that you have to be very careful not to do this. So the key to eliminating overgrowth is restoring the proper balance of healthy bacteria. And to do that, you have to go into a diet that is candida offensive to the candida, and one of the major things you'll put in it is coconut oil, because capric acid and lauric acid are both strong antifungals.
Okay.
You put some digestive enzymes with it, because the digestive enzymes help to break into the chitin, which makes the candida more vulnerable. So he puts a list of the things here that are good in helping to prevent the growth of candida. And at the head of it is coconut oil. And right below that is garlic, then cayenne pepper, onions, seaweed, rutabaga, that's a tuber, ginger, extra virgin olive oil, which is also antifungal, lemon and lime juice, and pumpkin seeds.
Pumpkin seeds.
Right. Now the other thing is supplements that help to eliminate cancer, probiotics, digestive enzymes, which helps to break into the shell,
Yes.
and our good friend colloidal silver.
Colloidal silver.
Probiotics replace the balance of healthy bacteria in your intestine. Digestive enzymes break down the candida cell wall and its protective biofilm. It's called chitin. That's the name of it.
Yeah.
It's the same as the shell of the crab and things like that.
Right.
And colloidal silver kills destructive one-cell pathogen, including fungus. So the colloidal silver gets in there and helps to make a nice knock of it. Colloidal silver is really a remarkable thing. One of the things I do anytime I'm traveling by plane. You know, the whole system there is the air keeps getting recycled.
Of course.
Right, with the addition of a small amount of air from outside. Because you had to heat that air coming out from outside because it's extremely cold.
Of course it is, yeah.
So you have a situation where you say, all right, what they used to have long ago in planes, they used to have a silver filter. And when the air passed through the silver filter, it used to kill all the bacteria and things inside it.
Nice.
But a silver filter is made of pure silver, so it is a little bit expensive. So the guys in there say, well, we really don't need this, let's take this out. So you have air now that is recycling, and any germs or anything that the passengers have gets recycled too.
Yeah.
So what I normally have is a little spray filled with colloidal silver. So I'm going along, and I take a few spray while I'm going up the road, and everybody's coming out with, their sniffles.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
90% of the time, it don't touch me at all. But I don't only spray it in my nose.
Yeah.
Where you think I also spray it?
In your mouth?
Yeah, and where else?
Ears?
No.
Okay.
Your mouth, your nose, and where?
Okay.
When I tell
can
you,
we see this on television?
Your eyes.
Your eyes.
Yeah.
Right.
Most cold starts in your eyes, not in your nostrils.
Okay, so you just spray
Your
it all over.
nostrils have little hairs inside it.
Yeah. Right.
And it tends to catch a lot of things.
Good.
Your mouth is normally closed, and you have saliva that have a lot of bacteria inside there who can be very efficient.
Right, but your eyes.
But the way how you get colds most of the time, you think this is that when you sneeze on your breathing, is that the person's hand has it.
Yes.
And you shake hands with them.
And then you go rub your eyes.
And then you come in, you rub your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you ever feel your eyes start to burn a little bit and smart?
Yeah, at times. I thought it was due to tiredness, though.
Yeah. One side, one eye.
Yeah.
And you don't realize that you just talk to the guy there to take it. And 8 hours later, you notice you're getting a cold.
Right.
You start to sniffle. So you think you breathe it in somewhere,
I can't
you rub it into your
relate
eyes.
to that because I'm always washing my hands. But
Yeah, that's one of the things to do
Yeah.
whenever you're in a situation where you have plenty of people around you have the cold, is to wash your hands regularly.
Mm.
I understand that very well. You shake people's hands and things like that. When you
Yeah.
finish, you go outside and you wash your hands.
Good.
And it minimizes the cross-chain
Contamination.
infection.
Good.
So that was the thing. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and that is a herb called rhodiola.
Rhodiola.
It is it has been used by the Scandinavians and the Russians for a long time, hundreds of years. And it's good to reduce stress and fatigue and boost memory and concentration. It really is a powerful herb. In fact, when it was first discovered back, if I remember right, I started seeing circulation of the name, I think in about the 1970s, late 1960s and
That's been
70s.
around for a while.
And the athletes from the Scandinavian countries used to use it to boost their athletic activity, give them stamina and things like that. But it's also good for helping to increase longevity and for its capacity in treating and preventing disease. They say that on tests that they did with animals, it tends to show an increase in longevity of about 24%.
Not
So
bad.
imagine if you start doing that and
Right.
you carded for 90, you could get another 20 years out of that
Where
and
can I
carry
get
you
this
to
rhodiola?
110. You buy it and you use it,
Yeah.
If you go in a herb shop, you might get it.
Rhodiola. Got it.
Dietary restriction is the most effective way of increasing lifespan. So people who don't eat a lot, don't eat plenty of sugar and things like that, and they're always slim, they tend to live to a nice, healthy age.
Sounds like a good formula.
But they found that the same condition that mimics, they could mimic using rhodiola. So the UC Irvine University of California, Irvine, tested rhodiola's effect on the lifespan of multiple strains of male and female fruit flies, and discovered not only did it increase the lifespan by 24%, but it did so by affecting the molecular pathways unrelated to dietary restriction. Even better, the rhodiola extract kept physical performance from deteriorating as the flies aged. So what you're saying is that if you're doing rhodiola, your physical well-being tends to stay in better nick
Nice.
than ordinary, right?
That's some rhodiola.
And it even lengthened the lives of old flies. Rhodiola actually increases the lifespan on top of that of dietary restriction. Rhodiola can act even in individuals who are already long-lived and healthy. This is quite unlike resveratrol, which appears to act only in overfed and unhealthy individuals.
Right.
So the mental and physical benefits of rhodiola, in addition to disease prevention, longevity, rhodiola is gaining increasing attention in the West as a highly effective adaptogenic herb, which can help manage our immune, physiological, and neurological responses to stress. As a herb, it has a proven track record, is a memory booster, a stress reducer, anxiety alleviator, fatigue fighter, energy elixir, and a concentration cure. In 2002 Herbalgram, the Journal of the American Botanical Council, reported that numerous human and animal studies attest to rhodiola's ability to reduce fatigue, lower stress, enhance immune system function, and even boost sexual energy.
Hey, hey.
Yes, it does. You know, a 2011 analysis of 11 placebo-controlled human studies validated rhodiola's favorable effect on physical and mental health condition. Intensifies your sensitivity to neurons by making the blood-brain barrier more permeable. Dopamine and serotonin, the feel-good hormones responsible for mood, have a clear, unobstructed path on which to travel. Rhodiola increases your energy by expanding the oxygen carrying capacity of your red blood cells, which is especially beneficial in times of stress when we forget to take deep, complete breaths. Rhodiola comes to combat stress by balancing your endocrine system and monitoring the amount of cortisol released into your bloodstream.
Right.
Helps burn fat by activating the enzyme hormone-sensitive lipase, which in turn helps the body access and burn fat stores that are in your abdominal cells. They found that many commercial brands of rhodiola extract did not contain sufficient amounts of the active compound rosavin and salidroside that imparts the plant's purported healthy benefits. So if you're taking rhodiola, make sure it is a standardized extract that contains 2 to 3% rosavin and 0.8 to 1% salidroside.
Right.
They advise taking 100 milligram a day for 1 week and then increasing the dose by 100 milligram for the next 3 weeks until you reach 400 milligrams.
Nice. Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. Rhodiola away.
Okay, so I think the cameraman is...
Says he wants to go get some rhodiola.
Yes.
Yeah, for longevity.
So we'll continue this next week.
Oh yeah.
We'll probably start getting into some of the more intricate diseases.
Yeah, doctor, bulletin boards are getting really more and more interesting every week. Yeah, boy, the information, you're really digging it up.
We'll leave the bulletin board for a little while and we'll go into some.
Nice. I mean,
See my book that I had there.
yeah, boy, I was watching it.
Yeah, it has some good
It's a
information.
black book.
Yeah, so I thought I would go into it and talk to people who are ill and have all these things, even have things for seizures and all of that, what you can use. You know, you can minimize seizures by going on a ketogenic diet.
You mentioned that before. It makes a whole lot of sense.
And that ketogenic diet thing was developed by the Johns Hopkins University, I think it's in 1920,
Look at that.
you know.
Yep. Well, we will get into that.
So we will go through
Very interesting book you have
this
there.
and all the various supplements that you use and how. It's a very well researched book. You see all All the
All those references, are you serious?
All those references. They're all scientific article references.
Wow.
So they really did their homework.
Correct. I love it.
So they have multiple sclerosis too. Whole lot of different ones.
Excellent. All right. Well, we definitely get into that sometime soon. Once again, thank you very much for tuning in to. It's a program that you should not miss. It's every week, and we do the bulletin board. We do main topics, and more than ever, we try to give you the power in health. You can have health and power. So my name is Alex Singh, Dr. Myers. We thank you very much for viewing. Until next week, this has been In Power Health.